I'm gonna predict the Mavericks to go 54-28. That is optimistic from me. I mean, right? That would kill the Las Vegas over/under, which is. Do you have that in front of you? I think it's like
it was 47.5 or 48.5.
Right. So I mean, that would be going way over.
48.5.
I think this team has a legitimate chance to win it all. And I know they're not anybody's favorite. I know they're not high in power rankings. I know they're not high in Vegas to win it all. I totally get it. But I do believe you have the best player offensively. I have to watch myself here. Giannis is the best player overall because defensively he's a top 5 player, if not the best. And offensively, I would say he's a top 10 player in the league. Where Luka, I believe, is the best offensive player in the league. And then not anywhere close to a top 10 defensive player in the league. So I totally get that to be realistic about Luka and where he is at. But I do really like JaVale McGee being added. I really like Christian Wood being added. I think Christian Wood can be an all-star this year. Now, I don't think he'll be it because he's not starting, and I think it's very tough if you're not starting on your own team. Not saying he's our 6th best player. I think he's our 2nd best player, but it's just the way Jason Kidd sees the way he wants to start the game. And Christian Wood will be a major finisher. I think he's going to be 20-10. I think the Mavericks are going to make a trade around the All-Star break before the trade deadline to bolster them up. I could see a guy like Mike Conley Jr. coming here, something like that, to help them out with maybe a little bit of deficiency that you see over the first 40 games. So that's my optimistic view. And I know that people always, say, Mike, you're never optimistic about anything. But I'm going way out on a limb here. I'm probably going to be wrong. I mean, most likely when you pick a team to win a championship that's not a favorite, you're going to be wrong. But I believe the Mavericks have a lot of things in place, and it's Luka being the MVP of this league to possibly win it all.
Now, it probably won't surprise you that the only scenario in which 40 wins or fewer, it's a catastrophe, major injury to Luka. And if Luka plays the majority of the season, obviously you would think the Mavericks would be 500 and we jump beyond that. All right, Corey, where are you at on your projections? We've set the bar very high. And somebody asked is Mike drunk, but then a different follow-up was 58 wins. And then from the 214, I'm with Mike. Mavs win the championship. It's a breakthrough for Luka with an MVP as well.
The Mavericks currently have the 6th easiest schedule based on our strength of schedule ranker.
Okay.
I don't know how it works, Mike. Don't worry.
Doesn't everybody pretty much play the same schedule?
Yeah, and the Mavericks are
for the most part.
So looking at that and going off that, I'm going to go with 81-1 as the best record possible. They're going to lose tonight and then be so ticked off about it that they never lose another game again. How do you like that? So that you start off
80-2
because then they quit on the last game. They're like, we don't need this one.
They kind of did that, and then they lost in the first round.
Yeah, so
that actually is remarkably similar to the 06-07 season.
I think this is definitely a 50-win team. Like there's no doubt about it in my mind. And so adding a couple more wins to it, I can see where Mike is on that. Like, this is a 50-win team with Luka. So I'm going to I'll roll out 50 wins, Kevin. And I think that's low on the low end.
And you know what? I'm actually with you at 50-32 as well. I know it's not helpful whatsoever, but I can't stop thinking about the dynamic of still having Brunson with this team and how different I would have felt. Like, I'm with you. If Brunson would have been here, I think I would have probably been at 58-24 and like, let's ready to roll, because this takes care of having a 3rd-tier player on your team that's phenomenal and then also handle some of your 2nd-tier ball handling deficiencies. Although we'll see how Dimwitty does. I don't want to like say he can't do it. I'm just a little anxious to see how that part plays out.
I have to know how they get past the Christian Wood moment. If there is a moment, maybe there never is. Maybe Sweeney is tight enough with him that he's like, look, just buy into Kid.
Like you're saying, like a boneheaded moment?
A moment where he's like, he doesn't show, or he gives the effort, or becomes that guy that we heard about in Houston that you're like, oh man, cancer, really?
Right.
Like I'm if there's, because they're a bunch of guys in one locker room and they got to gel. You know, they all have to be part of this team, part of it.
Yeah.
And for that moment when it happens, do they say, all right, we got to move on from him and we can trade him and get another piece for him? Or do they say, you know what, we're going to stick through it with him? I want to see how that locker room connects, because last year, that's the thing that carried them through in the playoffs was they were tight.
And to your point, and I go back to my buddy Mike Koploff, who obviously scout for the Philadelphia Phillies, and we've been through this, and sometimes I forget this too. And he was talking about, winning really isn't a goal in professional sports for a lot of the players. And here's why: because you're either trying to stay in the league, you're trying to make a lot more money in the league because you haven't really got your long-term everything's good contract. And Christian Wood will be interesting because he's a major piece to this puzzle that is really looking for his kind of second really huge, life-changing, I don't have to worry about money now, it's really all about winning deal. And to like Corey's point, and I just wonder this because I do think bringing him off the bench is a little bit scary in that he's a guy looking for the max out contract.
Yeah.
He's a guy that has max out stats at times, but isn't seen as a max out player. And so what I mean by this is, yes, Luka's set. Luka, it's all about winning. He doesn't have to worry about anything. And then your veteran guys, they're set. But when you're a guy on a 1-year new team who's moving you to the bench, I know that they're going to want Wood to be the last 5 minutes of the game, not JaVale McGee, for the most part, if everything works out well. But still, as a guy in your 20s trying to get now a new 4 or 5 year contract at somewhere between like $100 and $150 million, sometimes you can think a little bit more about yourself than the team. And so that will be a key to Jason Kidd, is to make sure that Christian Wood fits in well, I think becomes your second best player, but works off of Luka. And my optimism is that he's going to be everything we dreamed Kristaps Porzingis would be when we were at the Super Bowl in Atlanta and the announcement was made that the Mavericks have traded for Porzingis.
Now, and this kind of speaks to the heart of that from the 214. C. Wood is going to have to show some heart. No effort on defense and soft screens aren't going to cut it. From the 214, if Wood is going to become a legit 1B and you have that second ball handler, which like I said, I'll give Dinwiddie a chance, absolutely. If the Mavericks believe in him, I can't wait to see what happens. We can get to 55 wins. If Christian Wood does not fit in here or sucks, you'll be down to 45. And that's why we talk so much about Christian Wood, right? Because like I think we all know that Luka is obviously what makes this go, but you already know that is like the variable more is what Christian Wood is going to do. From the 682, there's a lot of optimism for this season.
I mean, they were 3 wins away. I know it was still a lot, but they were 3 wins away from being in the NBA Finals.
The reason why I'm a little bit surprised that there's optimism, I don't feel this way, but outside, people seem to think this team got worse with the swap out of Wood and McGee for Brunson. I don't feel that way, but that does seem to be the sentiment. Yeah. Do you think the team got worse?
No, I don't at all.
But
that's what I don't understand.
That's what the prevailing sentiment is out there. Like whenever you talk about who had the worst offseason,
especially from national media, right?
Exactly. The Mavs get a lot of traction in there, which I don't think is right. From the 682, I think 55-27, but we lose in the Western Conference Finals. From the 214, 52 to 56 wins is more than doable for this team. From the 469, finally get to go see my first in-person Luka game this Saturday. So congratulations to you. Mavericks will be a top 3 seed at 61-21. So you see it pretty consistently. There's a lot of optimism. Even with the Dallas Morning News, I felt like this was, pretty optimistic. Is how far did the Mavs go in the postseason? You get across the board votes for Western Conference semifinals, and then what seed will they get? 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So these are all people that have the Mavs like right on the cusp of the top half of that playoff picture.
I do think there's going to be a lot of parity in the West, and what I mean by that is so many good teams that it's going to be tough to get to 60 wins. I think if you get to 60 wins, I believe you'll be the 1 seed. I think 60-22 is a heck of a record in the Western Conference, as teams like Sacramento, who look improved through trades, the Lakers, who, if you watched last night, obviously have issues, and that looks like a team that's going to be fighting for like a 8, 9, 10, 11 spot. So it kind of shows how strong the Western Conference is and how many teams. But I just think that Luka took the responsibility of being overweight and out of shape and not ready to play an NBA season. And we see the difference in his mentality. I think this team, for the most part, and I know they didn't have Brunson, but I think the team, for the most part, led by Luka and Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock, they got a taste of Western Conference Finals. And really, they got their doors blown off. For the most part, I mean, that wasn't a very competitive series, and Golden State took it to them. But I think that's part of the steps of getting to a championship for the most part, unless you add LeBron and Chris Bosh to Dwayne Wade. Then you can kind of eliminate a lot of steps. And I know I'm probably too advanced on this one and going all the way that they can win it all. But I don't know. For some reason, I have a good feeling about this team. I have a great feeling about Luka. And I know there's people out there that, will text in that aren't big Luka fans, that just don't think Luka's really a top 10 player in the league, stuff like that. Hey, everybody has their own opinion. Totally get it. But I'm going off of at the end of this year, people are going to say, look, it's a pretty easy vote here. Luka's the MVP of this league.
Wow.